Washington Post about a month ago, and I quote, "If black people kill black people every day, why not have a week and kill white people?"
As Sister Souljah, I reserve the right to fight against white racism. I have not ordered anyone to kill anyone. I do not advocate anybody killing anybody.
He spoke as an invited guest of Jesse Jackson at the Rainbow Coalition. She answered back at a Manhattan news conference. An angry rap artist clashing head-to-head with the Democrats seeking to become president of the United States with the support of African-American voters. Good morning, I'm Gabe Pressman. Sister Souljah, the performer and political activist who has injected a new note of controversy into presidential politics, is our guest today on News Forum. A few days have passed. On reflection, what do you say to Governor Clinton, to the charge that you advocated, killing white people?
What I say to Clinton is that, unfortunately, he was victimized by not understanding the context that the statements that I did make were in. And he went before the international press and made a statement without doing adequate research. So I think it was a mistake on his part.
Now, the questioner at the Washington Post, as I understand it, said even the people themselves who were perpetrating that violence, meaning in Los Angeles, did they think it was wise? Was that wise, reason, action? And according to him, your answer was, yeah, it was wise. I mean, if black people kill black people every day, why not have a week and kill white people? Understand what I'm saying? In other words, white people, this government and mayor were well aware of the fact that black people were dying every day in Los Angeles under gang violence. So if you're a gang member and you would normally be killing somebody, why not kill a white person? Do you think that somebody thinks that white people are better or above and beyond dying when they would kill their own kind? This is all attributed to you. Is that accurate?
What is not accurate is the interpretation and the conversation that happens before that question and after that question. What I was saying in the voice and in the mindset of a gang member is that, first of all, everybody knew that black people were dying in LA, but nobody cared about that fact because black death is considered less valuable than white death. It was when white people lost money in Los Angeles, when white people felt pain in Los Angeles, when white people got killed in Los Angeles, that the whole country considered it a national crisis. So what I was saying is that in the mind of a gang member, if what you do is kill, because you have been neglected by the social and economic and spiritual systems of America, you don't have any hesitation at who you kill, because killing is what you do as a gang member. So why are white people surprised that gang members would kill them the same way they would kill black people? So that is the interpretation of those remarks. I think it's unfortunate that we have such a misunderstanding in America, but I'm not surprised at that also, because most of the time black and white people do not talk, and most of the time white people do not understand the language of black people, and black people do not understand the language of white people.
But is it constructive or is it counterproductive to sing songs that seem to agitate presidential candidates and make some white people fear that black people are going to kill them?
First of all, that wasn't a song. That was a so-called interview.
That's right.
And in that interview, it was a very hostile interview. I've begun to call it an argument because that's more of what it was. And the interview ended with me walking out of the room because I felt that the reporter was trying to set me up to say certain things, and he was unsatisfied with the fact that I wouldn't say certain things. For instance, he said, "Would you have lit the match that burned down the buildings in Los Angeles?" I said, "I'm not going to answer that question." He says, "Why aren't you going to answer the question?" I said, "It's purely hypothetical."
Do you feel, though, that some of the lyrics in your songs do advocate violence in that you say we're at war?
No, when I say that we are at war, what I am saying is that this society of America has a definite racist position against African people in this country and African people throughout the world, whether they're in Haiti, South Africa, any place in the Caribbean, or even Latin America. And so it's a war because if you want to survive, if you want to control your own destiny and your own education, you have to realize that these systems have declared war against you. So that's what I mean when I say we are at war.
A columnist for Newsday, Cheryl McCarthy, she happens to be African-American, wrote last Wednesday that you are outrageously wrong to claim that blacks, Hispanics, and Asians are incapable of racism, and it's always harmful even when it is acted upon by the least powerful. Racism is. What's your reaction?
Well, you know, the interesting thing about reporters is you never get to ask them the questions. You see, we don't know where this woman comes from. Just because she's black doesn't mean anything, because a lot of blacks in this country have been processed through this whitewashed American educational system, which doesn't teach them to love themselves. So their analysis is almost the same as if they were white, even though they appear to be black. But answering your question, what was the question again?
Well, the question simply was...
about racism.
Right.
The reason why I say that African people cannot be racist is because racism is a coordinated system of power that oppresses people, which means that I, as Sister Souljah, do not have the power to order the National Guard into any white community. No African leader any place in the world has the military power to go into another country and occupy their country. I don't have the power to deny a white child to go to the educational school system and not be able to learn about themselves and their culture. Yet, in America, each and every day, African children are miseducated under this system and dominated by this system. But then when we respond, people say you're a racist. In other words, people say, Sister Souljah, you're angry and you're a racist. No, I'm not a racist. I'm responding to a system of racism that's coordinated against my existence.
After World War II, I visited Auschwitz in Poland, where millions of Jews and others, including gypsies, were exterminated by the Nazis. And I wrote my mother a letter about the details, the gas chambers, the ovens, the piles of shoes, and the hair shorn off the heads of corpses to become mattresses. My letter was a letter full of hatred. And my mother wrote back, I don't give a damn what your hatred of the Nazis will do to them. I do care about what it will do to you.
Right.
Are you concerned that the hatred that you have, or the hatred that perhaps you help not create, but stoke the fires of, that's going to be helpful to black people, to African Americans, or can it in the long run be detrimental?
I think it's unfortunate that white people cannot see that what moves me is my love for African people in general and for African children in particular. And what I would like to be able to promise to any African child is that they can survive, control their own destiny, control their own business, worship their own God, and be productive and healthy in this world. And so that's what Sister Souljah fights for. Unfortunately, white people can't see it that way because they're used to African people being dependent upon them, which is something that they capitalize on very, very well.
All right, I'd like to ask you about something that Governor Cuomo said. In fact, I have a tape of what he said. But first, I want to stop for this message.
Someone has to sit Bill Clinton or his representatives down with Sister Souljah and her representatives, Jesse Jackson, and reconcile the situation. There is no good in this kind of division, especially for the Democrats. The political theory that says, well, you get points by separating yourself from some groups. I don't accept that. The only way to make progress is not by defining your enemies, but by increasing your friends.
You saw Governor Cuomo's suggestion that you sit down with Mr. Clinton and the Reverend Jackson and others. What's your reaction to that?
My reaction is that sitting down would have been the common sense to do before you go before the international press. If Clinton wants to sit down at this late date, I'm receptive to the communication, but he should not expect me to be happy about what has happened.
Do you think, you haven't heard from Mr. Clinton?
No, I haven't.
Have you spoken to Mr. Jackson, to Reverend Jackson?
Yes, I've spoken to Reverend Jackson.
And what does he say to you?
Reverend Jackson says that he believes that he has the right as a man and as a leader to speak to people in his community, even if they don't agree with his views or they agree with some of his views and not all of his views. I have to agree with Reverend Jackson because we as black people don't need permission from people on the outside to have conferences and conversations and to talk about our differing philosophies.
But nevertheless, you take Governor Cuomo at his word and you'd be willing to do this?
Oh, I'd be willing to sit down. I mean, the thing that I think everybody has to understand is that I'm very intelligent and rational and civilized. And I believe in negotiating and taking care of business. But I'm strong on my position. I don't give up something for nothing. I know what I want, and it's almost impossible for anybody to move me from point A to B unless that's where I want to go.
Is Bill Clinton going to lose black votes because of this incident?
I think if Bill Clinton continues to move in this vein, he is going to lose black votes. I look at the fact that I've received support from the most major black leaders in the country, and that's important.
Do you think black votes could go to Ross Perot or George Bush or perhaps stay home?
Definitely not to George Bush. I think he has the worst policies towards African people, and the way he has treated the Haitian community, which is also an African community, has been disgusting. Perot, when he presents an agenda, if it is progressive and humane in the area of African empowerment, he may get the votes.
Do you think that this was a calculated decision on Clinton's part to win white voters, feeling that he wouldn't lose very many black voters?
Absolutely. I think it was calculated, and I think it was racist. I'll tell you why it was calculated. It was calculated because the interview happened over a month, maybe a month and a half ago, and he's just responding, saying that he was sincerely and deeply hurt, but it took him a month and a half to call me. It was racist because he assumed that he was going to pick on some little black girl, and she wasn't going to come back and slap him in the face, and that she wasn't going to be intellectual enough to handle him, politicized enough to present the issues, and have enough savvy to go and do research on him and challenge him as a political candidate.
Now, you say that black people basically are incapable of racism because, among other things, they lack power. Was it a racist act, though, for black men to drag Reginald Denny out of a truck on the corner of Florence and Normandy in Los Angeles and beat him into critical condition?
You know what I think? I think it was a situation of America ignoring its disease for so long that the frustration level becomes so extreme that it can drive people to physical abuse and even to murder. And I think that the Bloods and the Crips in Los Angeles had been neglected so long, and the problem festered so long, and the Rodney King...
You're talking about the gangs, right?
Right. The Rodney King decision was so incredibly unjust that it moved people to action.
But you had the support, I mean, black people had the support of many white Americans because they, too, felt that the Rodney King verdict was unjust, even some police officers, I'm sure. And then the arson and the looting, and a lot of white voters were turned off. White people, I mean, were turned off.
Right. One of the lines in my song...
Wasn't it counterproductive in a way?
One of the lines in my song is, you know, Souljah was not born to make white people feel comfortable. I think it's important for white people to understand We are human and we feel pain. And you cannot continue to be the deliverers of pain and not expect to be the receivers of pain. For some reason, white people continue to rationalize their actions against the African community and then rationalize why we should not react to the evil actions that they do. I don't think that you're going to see an America that functions that way in the future, because the young population is simply not going for what some of the older blacks went for.
Now, I have a white skin, not a black skin. Do you think it's possible for me to empathize, to understand black pain, or is it totally impossible?
You know, what we need is not empathy. What we need is action. I think white people also have to learn that it's not about feeling sorry for us. It's about, if you're white and you say that you're a good person and you're against racism, that you have to organize against a system of injustice in America. You have to organize against a system where the whole entire United States Senate is all white. And you want African people to feel like they have power, or there's a negotiation there, or we can talk. How can we talk when in mostly every equation we are not even at the table? The question is a question of power. And if white people are not willing to give up any of the power that they have off of the exploitation of African and Latino people, Chicano people, then this hostility will continue.
I'd like to ask you about rapper Ice-T's album with its song called Cop Killer after this message.
Sure.
Ice-T said, well, in this album, the song says it's about a character who is, quote, about to dust some cops off, And the chorus says, die, pigs, die. And this has caused an outcry, particularly among police officers around the country. What's your reaction to that kind of sentiment expressed in rap?
I think that police officers have been painted as supermen in our communities, you know, that we're supposed to respect police officers. And unfortunately, police officers don't respect us. And so the attitude of the police in our community is not that they serve us as black and Latino people, but that they protect the property from us as black and Latino people. So this has caused a lot of hostility. Plus you have kids like Philip Pinnell that was killed in Teaneck, and a whole laundry list of black men. And so of course you're going to get songs like that, because that's how a black man feels about the police and the fact that they do crimes and get away with the crimes that they do.
What about what I mentioned about my mother? I mean, doesn't hate beget hate? Doesn't it keep the cycle going?
Yeah, but
and the white folks are in the majority.
But,
so aren't the black people going to suffer more?
Well, somebody's got to stop it, and I don't think that white people can continue to think that they're going to have passive reactions to extreme racism and destruction of our race.
Do you think that white people will ever stand up for justice?
No. I think that black people have to be organized to get our own power. I don't think that we can depend on white people being compassionate, because they weren't compassionate to the Indians, and now they wear their names on their football shirts and their baseball shirts as though the native Indians were some type of horses.
In your song, The Hate That Hate Produced, you say Souljah was not born to make white people feel comfortable. I am African first, black first. I'm shortening it a bit. I want what's good for me and my people first. And if my survival means your total destruction, then so be it.
Right. The next line is...
Is this a way, though, to make peace?
The next line is, you built this wicked system.
Right.
They say two wrongs don't make it right, but it damn sure makes it even. And to add to that, I say there'll be no peace unless there's some justice.
Now, one African-American, Roger Wilkins, says, I don't defend Sister Souljah. It's wrong to justify any violence, but Clinton's speech was arrogant and it was cheap. He came there to show suburban whites he can stand up to blacks. It was contrived. Do you agree with Mr. Wilkins?
I agree that it's contrived, but I want to offer myself some comfort in the fact that I spoke personally with Minister Farrakhan and with Reverend Jesse Jackson, with Reverend Dr. Calvin Butts and Reverend Timothy from New York and Bob Law. All of the people that I respect, C. Vernon Mason, are in support of me because they know me and they love me. They know I've never killed anybody. I've never been part of a terrorist organization. I'm not a criminal. I'm a community servant and a rapper who loves her people and stands up for her people.
But Coretta King said the other day that it's very important to remember the message of nonviolence that her husband died for.
I think that Coretta King has been out of step with the times for a very long time.
You seem bitter and you seem angry. Are you?
Racism definitely makes me angry.
You were born in the Bronx. You were raised, I guess, in the Bronx in New Jersey.
Yes.
Was there a particular time, a particular experience that created the persona that I'm sitting across from right now?
Let me see. Was it a particular experience? It could have been either the projects. It could have been the fact that all of the black... It could have been that all of the black people went to stores owned by white people and didn't own anything. It could have been that black men went to the Vietnam War and came back and still didn't have any money and still didn't have any jobs and still didn't have any respect. It could have been that my father wasn't in my home, nor was any of my friends' fathers in their home because most of them had been mentally and spiritually beat down by America. It could have been that I was on welfare. It could have been that I was in the underclass. It could have been any of those things, Gabe.
Or
I'm
many.
not sure which one.
Or all of them.
Or all of them.
Do you see any hope for America?
My hope is in the minds of African children. I believe that I can help to make African children stronger, to show them what books they need to be reading, to organize their own businesses so that they can get power and control of their own lives.
You've run some community organizations, haven't you?
Sure. I've worked with children from homeless families. I've worked in Africa and Zimbabwe. I've traveled to the Soviet Union, England, Finland, Holland, studied at the University of Salamanca. I've been all around the world, Gabe, and the most constant impression is that African people, wherever you go in this world, do not have power, do not have respect, and all need to stand up and seize power and turn their pain into something productive so that we can have some type of future.
Thanks for expressing your views candidly here today. Thank you, Sister Souljah, for being our guest on News Forum. I'm Gabe Pressman. Good afternoon.